right. Hello, everybody. My name is Martha Alter Hines, and today I am here with Divine Harmony. And this is already so good. Yeah, we've been talking and dropping into prayer before starting, and it's much to come in this time together. I already can feel it. I already know it. But let me do the human words thing and introduce you, and then we'll drop more fully into what is meant to come through in our time together. So, yeah, so I've known about your work for years, but Heather Ensworth connected with you, and then she said to me, Martha, I think you really need to connect with Divine Harmony. I think you guys would really get along. And I thought, and I, of course, because it's Heather, I said, okay, great. So I reached out to you, and then, and then, and then Heather interviewed you, and then she wrote me again and said, I really think you should connect with Divine Harmony. I said, I know, I already am. We already have that already set up. So she said, great. So anyway, and then we did connect, and then I said, yeah, of course, we're meant to connect. It's awesome. And so for everybody watching, the topic we're going to be focusing on today, I'm so excited and happy to be doing this, is Harmony is going to give us her beautiful perspective on the Pleiades, their history, the etymology of the stars' names, just so much there. And before we start, we also were talking about a topic that I think maybe we'll weave in and out as we go through this time together, is how you and I both value the way we connect with stars and the way we acknowledge that we are beings of the stars, literally, and we're beings of Earth, and Earth is a cosmic being, right? And so in a second, we're going to actually just drop in all together, all of you listening, all of us, just for 2 or 3 minutes, just to really, really feel that. But let me read your bio so I get that out of the way, and then we'll just move from there. There's so much already going on so many other levels that my human mouth is it's having a hard time with the words.
No
It's
worries.
awesome. Yeah. Okay. So Divine Harmony is a mother, mystic, astrologer, writer, and teacher. With her background in depth psychology and spirituality, she works to weave together the dark and the light, the mundane and the sacred, the depths and the heights in order to support personal awakening, healing, and wholeness. She sees astrology as an amazing alchemical tool for self-understanding and living a more conscious, integrated life. She has a special interest in the divine feminine, shadow work, conscious relationship, and learning how to raise the new children incarnating on the planet today. And among so many other things, I mean, you and I have daughters around the same age. You did your graduate studying in the town where I live.
Yes.
On and
Often
on. And
crossover.
yeah, so much. Yeah. So welcome, Harmony.
Thank you.
So
Thanks for having me.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, why don't we start with just this really brief grounding and invite all of us to, in whatever way feels right for you, to drop in to our bodies, feel our bodies here as Earth, this beautiful Mama Gaia that we are literally made of, and the light of her heart and the light of our own beings connecting as one. And then we can feel ourselves as Earth, as the Earth is part of this solar system, which is all surrounding a star. Star we call the sun or soul. And then can connect in with the reality that our star is one of infinite other stars everywhere. And I often feel all these stars as a family together, with our star, of course, knowing them and them knowing us and us being part of it all. And we can feel how, as we're connecting in with stars, and today we're going to be particularly connecting in with the Pleiadian star system. That's not really an out there thing. We are in the middle of it all. We are part of it all. We are beings of the solar system, this galaxy, the infinite other galaxies, the whole cosmic existence. It's not something else. It is what we are, literally. So I personally love to feel myself just breathing in and out as a being of Earth who's breathing in and out as a being of the cosmos, all together as one. Harmony, do you want to add anything?
Mhm. Visualize a root going down through your root chakra into Mother Earth, deeply anchoring and grounding you into our blessed Earth Mother. And then simultaneously visualize a cord or a root at your crown, going up into the cosmos and anchoring you into the heavens above. And then visualize yourself as the bridge between earth and heaven, below and above, human and divine. Feeling both frequencies, celestial and terrestrial, running through your body, your being. Holding both, perhaps one in each hand, your human self, your divine self. And feeling the peace and harmony and balance of the two within your being. Giving gratitude for being here now on this earth at this time. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Hmm.
That was amazing.
Now that we're nice and charged up.
Yeah. Now that I'm in a very beautiful space. Great.
Thank you.
Well, so yeah, welcome. Thank you so, so much again. Pleiades. Where do you want to start?
Let's start by just talking about what is like the modern myth, and when you read the Greek and Roman teachings about mythology about the Pleiades, and then kind of arc into some other places. So the Pleiades are said to be named after the mother Pleione. So the Pleiades are like seven sisters, seven stars, up above the Taurus constellation and over by there. And Atlas is the father, Pleione is the mother. So they say the Pleiades is supposed to mean the daughters of Pleione. But there's actually thoughts that the Pleiades were named Pleiades first, and then they named Pleione after and gave her a name that meant mother of those stars. And it can kind of go either way. Plain means to sail, And these stars had sailing associations. They actually were timed with the sailing season. The beginning and ending of the sailing season would correlate with the heliacal rise and set of the Pleiades. And they also were associated with rains and the rainy season. And so the mythology we're told today is that they were companions of Artemis, a huntress goddess, and they would go off and hunt with her. And I have more to say about her in a little bit. And Atlas, the two main kind of segues of their myth is that Atlas, their father, was a Titan, and he sided with the Titans in the war with the Olympians. And then the Titans lost. Most of them got put in Tartarus, but he was actually asked to bear the heavens on his shoulders, and it was his punishment for fighting the Olympians. And so one version of the myth is that the sisters got so upset about their father being punished, they were in such grief that he had to do this for the rest of his existence, that they killed themselves. Or sometimes there's a version that they turned into birds and flew away. And then when they killed themselves and or turned themselves into birds, Zeus had pity for them and turned them into stars. Another version of the story is that Orion is chasing them and is actually trying to pursue them sexually, predatorily. They're trying to get away. And Zeus felt bad, had compassion, so he turned them into birds, and then at some point turns them into stars. So there's kind of some common layers of these two myths in the sense that the sisters were grieving and didn't want to be here, or they were being chased by a male sexual predator and they didn't want to be here. And both of the stories, they get uplifted into the heavens in the form of birds first and then become stars. And they're heavenly celestial beings now, not here on the earth anymore. So we've got these two kind of mythic stories of the Pleiades going up and out, right? And so one thing I wanted to share is the etymology of the stars. And this is a big part of my work in Stargate Mystery School, which was like a year and a day thing that I did a couple years ago. And what I do is I look at the etymology of the stars, the star names. A lot of them are Arabic. And also there's the Greek and there's, we actually named a bunch of stars in 2019. So you can't actually go off on those star names because they're too modern. But if you go way back, you can start seeing layers of maybe what was there before. And this is what I did throughout the whole arc of the class. So we have Atlas and Pleione, or the father and the mother. Atlas means bearer of the heavens, to lift, to support, to weigh. And Pleione can be related to sailing, but it can also be to make full or plenty or many. So the ladies of plenty. In French, it also means in the open air, and they're like up there. Now, Maya is the eldest daughter. She's supposed to be the most beautiful. She's the grandmother, the mother nurse. She's called the Great One. And she's seen as the mother of Hermes by Zeus. Electra means amber, shining or bright, and she's the mother of two sons by Zeus. Tegete means long-necked, like a bird, and she's the mother of one son by Zeus. And then Alcyone, which is the big star that most people pay attention to in the Pleiades, means kingfisher bird, strong helper, queen who wards off evil, the central one. And she's the mother of possibly 6 children by Poseidon. And then we have 3 more. Celeano means swarthy or dark color complexion. She's the mother of 4 children by Poseidon. And then Sterope or Asterope means lightning, twinkling, sun-faced, star-faced. And she's possibly the mother of this king with Aries, but then she might just be the wife of this king. And there's sort of 2. And whenever there's like different threads, you got to start asking questions, and we'll get to that in a second. And then the last one is Merope. She's the youngest, and she's actually the missing star. So there used to be 7 stars that you could see clearly, and then one started fading over time or disappearing, and that's Merope. And it means, her name means eloquent or bee eater, and bee eater is a reference to birds that eat bees. And she actually was the only one that didn't have any children with gods. She married Sisyphus. And it is said that by marrying a mortal, she became mortal, and that's why she faded away as a star. So it's interesting to me, first, I just want to say, you notice here we've got a lot of associations with birds. And he, Zeus turns them into birds in different variations of the myth. We also have a lot of references to like bright, starry, luminous, whatever the other ones were, twinkling, lightning. And so like the brightness energy is there. And also the fact that Maya is called the Great One and Alcyone is called the Central One. Those are two titles for the great goddess that were often used in ancient myths. You would call some of these deities so-and-so the Great One or so-and-so the Central One. And it was honestly a title for the divine feminine. And so the other thing is I'm sharing with you how like they have children with, Zeus, Poseidon, one, possibly Ares, but I have a question about that one. It's because all of them, with the exception of Merope, who married Sisyphus, who was mortal, were pursued and actually raped by male gods. So this is a motif that got written into the myths as we were moving from matriarchy to patriarchy. And the rape literally was symbolic of taking the power of the goddess, the previous benevolent or powerful goddess, and handing it off to the dude. And so it would be a way of taking older myths, changing them, transferring the power to the god, and, rewriting things in a new way. And so Poseidon, raped and seduced Alcyone, Seleno. Zeus did with Electra, Maya, and Tegeta. Ares is said to possibly have with Asterope, but remember there's the two versions of the myth. Ares actually is the only god who doesn't have, either doesn't at all have stories of rape or very few. And part of this, I taught this in Stargate Mystery School, he was actually the only god who got mad about rape. His daughter was getting raped and he got pissed and he killed the guy. He's the only divine god who would stand up for when women were being accosted. Back then, it was like, happened all the time. Why would you be mad about it? This is like normal, and rape was normalized, which makes me just feel sick to say that, but it's true if you read the myths. There's a whole Wikipedia page you can look up where it shows all the people who've been raped in Greek and Roman myth. And it's just like, it's really disgusting. Anyhow, so Ares, one of the people that he was maybe supposed to have raped was a Vestal virgin, but there was backstory to it because she actually showed up pregnant and the Vestal virgins weren't supposed to have sex and the punishment was being buried alive. And so it is said that she maybe said it was Ares because if it was a god, they wouldn't get mad at her and they wouldn't kill her. And then there's this one, so there's very few stories wherever with Zeus and Poseidon and many of the other deities you can find dozens. In the case of Zeus, I would probably say hundreds of stories of rape. So I don't think Ares did, but that's my 2 cents on that. Merope is the only one who didn't get pursued by a god in any of her myths, and she married a human. And it is said that she was so ashamed of that. That's why she disappeared. I disagree. So Sisyphus, if you know Sisyphus, he's the guy who got punished and had to push the rock up the hill. And as soon as it gets to the top, falls down, and he just does this forever. Well, did you know that he got punished because he called out Zeus for rape?
Oh, I did not.
That's one version of the story of why he was being punished. And so his punishment was doing this for all of eternity. And I'm really into etymology because it's like names and words, you can see hidden layers of meaning when you study the etymology of it, and particularly going back a long time. Sisyphus actually means wisdom. And they say that it means crafty. They took a lot of the words, ways of explaining words that were wisdom, and they changed it to crafty so that all of a sudden they're using their minds and their wisdom in crafty ways. But actually the older meaning of the name was just wisdom. And she married a man who's connected to wisdom, who called out a god for raping. I don't actually think she was ashamed of that personally. And maybe part of why she disappeared is so that she can't be chased or pursued. I don't know. That's what I wonder about. So all the bird references is really important because birds, we consider them messengers of the gods, right? And like totem animal, when you're working with the animals, that they are these beings that can land on the earth, but then they can fly up into the sky and they can go, who knows where. Down here, it looks like they can fly all the way up to the sun. Obviously, logically, we know they can't, but probably thousands of years ago, we might have thought that. And so they had this ability to bridge above and below. And so the bird reference is an important piece to understand when you're thinking of the Pleiades. Sometimes they're called the doves of peace. And as you saw, there were a few different kind of bird references, but that is one of the ways in which they can be referenced. It's interesting because the Japanese word for the Pleiades is Subaru, which is the car. And actually, if you see the car symbol, they show a big star, which is Alcyone, and then they actually show 5 other stars. They don't show 6. So they show the ones that are visible. The one that was missing is not showing or is invisible. And Subaru is the name for the Pleiades, but it also is etymologically means unity. So there's something about peace and unity and the divine feminine associated with the Pleiades. But conventionally, contemporarily, there's actually a lot of negative associations with the Pleiades. Like they say they're evil stars, they bring great harm, they are associated with accidents, blindness, and violence, which I remember when I first heard that, I was like, what? It just kind of annoyed me. But in the Bible, there's even a reference to them in the Bible where they say, "Can't you bind the sweet influence of the Pleiades?" So obviously there was a very sweet influence associated. In Egypt, they were the 7 Hathors, the goddesses of love and beauty. In India, they were the 7 Kritikas, the 7 sisters who married the 7 rishis of the Great Bear constellation. So they were married to the 7 rishi sages, and they were the 7 wives, divine feminine counterparts to those sages. In the Persian tradition, they call her, or them, sorry, Thuraya, which means princess, brilliant gem, wealth, and prosperity. So clearly, there's a lot of very positive associations. It's only more modernly that they start being called evil or bad or a malefic influence, which is, literally demonizing the feminine. And they're associated with Artemis. And interestingly, they're 444 light years away. Which, if anybody, I'm into numerology, and 444 is one of my favorite times. And when I saw how that they were 444 light years away, I was like, oh my God, like it never had dawned on me that maybe 444 was a Pleiadian, message when I see it. So for me, one of the things that I feel into when I hear these modern versions of the Pleiadian story and then look at the etymology is just this mythic story of the feminine that leaves. The feminine that goes up and out of her body because there's too much grief, there's too much violence, there's too much sadness. It's not safe to be here in the body, on the earth. I need to go up and out. And that version of them being turned into birds or killing themselves because of what's happening to their father or being pursued by Orion, both of these storylines show that mythic lens. And this feminine that leaves is also a story in the myth of Astraea.
Yeah.
Astraea was the last of the divine beings to live on Earth. And she finally had to go when the consciousness became so low vibration that it hurt her heart to stay here. So she had to leave. So for me, a big part of the Pleiades is that, and some of these other myths, is that we actually need to create the conditions on Earth and in ourselves for the feminine to come back down and in again.
Ooh, say that sentence again. That's really key. You just said
We,
something
yeah,
really
we
important. Well,
we need to create the conditions in ourselves, but
in
also on Earth.
ourselves, in ourselves. Whoa,
In
whoa.
ourselves, and the inner work
Mm.
then creates outer change. So I'm always about like, let's start within because it's the one place we've got like
No,
power.
no, totally. But I just want to pause there because of course, yes. I mean, of course I believe in starting within, but I've never, for whatever reason, when you're describing this whole the feminine leaving and all that, I immediately go to, yeah, well, of course, and we can, and especially those of us who identify as women can recognize that in ourselves. I'm sure most of us have had those kinds of experiences or we witness it, whatever. But I've done my own years and years of inner sacred union work, big time. I mean, that's huge in my own personal life. But I'm just recognizing, I have not thought of it like what you just said, that we
Mm,
need to create in ourselves the conditions for the feminine to,
fully embodied. Yeah.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay. Okay.
Because
That's,
it's
yes.
easy, the feminine, it's easier for the feminine to be in the heart and up, the heart chakra up. I'm in love space, I'm in spirit and intuition and creativity. But the lower body, the belly, the dantian, the womb, the lower chakras have a lot to do with being human. It's like root chakra, safety, security, being here in the body, sacral, sexual, emotional, solar plexus, like self-esteem, self-confidence, ego. My tradition is that ego is not bad. We don't want to kill the ego. We actually just want the ego to realize it's this small little thing that's meant to serve something so much bigger. It just needs to surrender to the total self, but we don't want to obliterate the ego. It helps us show up day to day, pay the bills, do things, that are not just like the transcendent spaces. And so this feminine energy had to go up and out and leave the planet because there was just too much war, violence, raping, killing, low vibration consciousness. And we want to create the conditions for her to be able to safely return. They say that Estrella, for example, when she does return to Earth again, will be the beginning of the golden age again. But it's like, we're not, in my understanding of that story, it's not like we're waiting for some being to descend from the sky. It's us. She
Literally.
needs to descend in us, whether we're male, female, non-binary. It's not about gender. It's about the essence. And we want her to fully incarnate again. We want her to be here. And she returns within each of us. And the fact that the Japanese word is unity, it's like her fully coming back is a journey of unity, of peace, of love, these things that sometimes people think are, oh, that's so woo-woo. And it's like, well, it's actually not really woo-woo because unless you want like humanity to completely destroy itself, we need to bring things back. We're on a train and it's going somewhere. And at a certain point, we won't be able to change tracks. So for me, a big piece of the Pleiades is actually um, calling the divine feminine back down. And another piece, which I told you I wanted to share a picture. So this goes back, first, let me just say this. This goes back to when I said, how do you make this go away? When I was talking about the association of the Pleiades with Artemis, and Artemis is the huntress goddess. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. Usually when there's mythological associations, you're going to see them near each other in the sky. And I'm like, well, where's Artemis? And there's the Pleiades. Well, what we do have is Orion, who's a hunter. Artemis was a hunter. Well, when you look into the etymology of Orion, which I didn't prepare, but like the stars, the belt of stars, the two on the side mean girdle. And then the one in the middle means either sapphire or pearls, precious jewels. And then there's a few other stars in like Betelgeuse. Elgeuse is a feminine suffix. And then one of the stars means like Amazon warrior goddess. So there's actually all this feminine energy in Orion. And then I found out anciently in Arabic lore, Orion was a she.
Mm.
Orion was Al-Uzza, the great one or the central one, which we saw those titles in the Pleiades. And this is the constellation of Orion as we know it today. And we see him as pointing to the right with his club up. Well, actually, back then when Orion was a she was pointing to the left. So she wasn't chasing the Pleiades. The Pleiades were behind her. She was facing Sirius in the other direction. And, the mythic rewrite of making Orion a he instead of a she, turning him in the other direction, making him chase after the Pleiades. They don't want to be chased. Zeus has to turn them into doves so they fly up into the sky, is one of the ways in which the myth started telling a different story, of victim feminine who can't be here. It's not safe. Predator masculine energy. And, that was a big aha moment for me. I'll tell you, actually, so the first time I ever looked at the etymology of a star was several years ago. God, I don't even remember. I bet I could find it, but whatever. It was in Ophiuchus. It was the fixed star Sinistra. And I remember going, that sounds like sinister. And I was like, well, what does it mean? So I just thought to look up the etymology of the word sinistra. And it means left-hand side. And then they did say that it was connected to the word sinister. And then I was like, all of a sudden I started connecting dots. I was like, they're making the left side, the feminine, wrong, evil. And then I started seeing all these other stories that were getting rewritten, or I would hear stories and I would get this immediate like gut reaction. Like I would get angry and I'd be like, that's not the right story. I'm like, I remember when it used to be a different story, but I wouldn't know necessarily all the layers of it. So then I would do research and then I would find these threads of these lost stories. And I did that with the Sekhmet story, with the Nephthys and Set story, with Arianrhod and the Celtic lore. Like I would get this overtaken with this annoyance with the way that the story was rewritten and then the modern story that we're told today has violence in it, or somebody got like lost or forgotten or turned evil. And I'm like, that's not what was there before. And the thing is, I'm going to make this stop now so we can just see each other. So the thing is that myth is a product of the prevailing consciousness at the time. So whatever's going on politically, socially, intellectually, spiritually, myth changes over time, and it gets changed to reflect what's happening at the time, and particularly it gets changed by the people in power so that the stories validate whatever they believe or whatever they're doing. And so it's normal for myth to evolve and change. It's just that right now we are surrounded by and overwhelmed by myths of violence, of rape, of killing, and of war. All the Greek and Roman myths are pretty much mostly violent myths. They're of conquering, of winning, of slaying Medusa, of killing Cetus. Medusa is an ancient female goddess archetype, and Cetus is a primordial mother goddess archetype. And whenever you see these deities being killed, especially female, it's almost like they're what do they call that something today? You know, when the news puts out like something about some celebrity, but they change it on purpose to make them look bad. It's not necessarily accurate. It's called something. It's like a rewrite. I forget what it's called. Anyhow, but that's what they did. And so, you know, it just is interesting because then you can trace these threads of how things moved and changed. And Joseph Campbell says that mythology is meant to inspire the human spirit. And we've been getting inspired by myths of war and violence and raping and killing and all the things. And so I actually think we need new myths, but
Mhm.
I think they're new and ancient myths. So they're like aware of what was there before, aware of what has been going on, and then like this arc of like something that is healing this shadow stuff, but is also bringing the gifts of the past and then creating something for what's where we're at now, you know, on this precipice of this new age. And we need myths to inspire us. And I don't think the myths we've got right now are super inspirational. They're inspiring division and polarity and winners and losers. And I mean, even some spiritual traditions, you know, think that we do need to kill the ego. And to me, that's like, that's that killer myth. Like, the ego doesn't need to be slaughtered, but it does need to surrender. It could maybe feel like a death, but it's not like you're murdering your ego. Um, so, you know, the Pleiades to me are just one of many examples in the sky of really ancient stories of divine feminine energy that used to be embodied and here on the earth that had to go up and out. And we actually want to call her back down and in. And how you and I even started talking about this is we were talking about how all the outer planets are activating the Pleiades right now.
Mm, 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 mm.
So there's like a current that's present at the moment that's like kind of opening, you know, the channel to the Pleiades in a bigger way, I think, than what was there before, or maybe, you know, thousands of years before it was there. I don't know, but like right now, we have Pluto trining the Pleiades, Neptune sextiling the Pleiades. Next year, Uranus is conjunct the Pleiades. Right now, Sedna is conjunct the Pleiades. And as you and I record this, Mars is transiting over 29 Taurus. We'll head into 0 Gemini this afternoon at like 4, I think it's actually 4:44.
Oh, really?
Eastern time on my time zone.
Mm.
And so Mars is transiting the Pleiades as we discuss the Pleiades right now. So yeah, I just feel like things are opening up and coming in, you know, but you also have to like be open
Yeah.
and tune in. Yeah.
I have so many thoughts.
Yeah, yes,
I
please
have
share.
so
I've
many.
been talking a lot.
No, 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 no. Yeah, okay. Where do we even begin? So, yeah, in your interview with Heather, there was a moment where you mentioned the same idea that you feel like we need new myths, and I've definitely heard Heather say the same thing. And then you guys veered off into another part of your conversation. I was like, wait, stop right there. I want to hear more about that. And I mean, absolutely. So I I also work really closely with Chris Skidmore, who is an astrologer and who's very into mythology and very into Greek mythology. And he was the first person ever who spoke about Greek mythology in a way that I could appreciate and that I love learning from him about it. And I think it's important. I think I value that so much because I do think it's important to know what I want to move on from before I move on. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to know what it is I'm starting with in a sense before I do something else. So I'm not discounting that in what I'm about to say.
Yes.
So there's that. And something that has been coming to me quite insistently in my own praying is I keep getting shown this council of infinity, which is basically like the reality that we are all of time and all of space as one, and that um we've been in this time of forgetting, and now we're in this time of remembering the wholeness that we are, etc. And part of the wholeness that we, part of that remembering, like literally remembering, coming back together as the body that we all are as source, as the oneness. Part of that is that what's natural to the beings that we are is to have a way of being in continual communication and continual dialogue on various levels. I mean, through intellectual words, but also just through energy, with the realms of everything, with
Mm.
literally all of time and all of space as one, because we are all of it. And so what I get shown over and over and over again is that in other existences, in other times, in other lifetimes, we have been beings who are in this continual dialogue with everything else, which includes the stars, which includes the earth, which includes each other, which includes all realms of all beings anywhere and everywhere. And that it's through that way of being that the mythology would come into existence and would continually evolve and change and grow. And anyway, there's so much I could say about this, but yes, I feel like that we've been missing that, right? And that a lot of us, I think, are being called back into coming into this council of infinity, if you want to call it that, or whatever words you want to put to it. But I feel really deeply called to yes, to begin to engage with each other in a way that does let the current, the energetic of these mythologies and these archetypes to continue their evolution, to not get stuck with whatever thing it is.
Yeah,
And I think that's part of what we're here to do, literally, like for real.
I
Yeah.
agree. You know, it's
Yeah.
funny when you said the Council of Infinity. I don't know if I shared this with you or
No, but
if
I
you.
saw your eyes going, wait.
Well, because I was just in Scotland and I
Mhm.
was up at the Isle of Harris and the Clenish Standing Stones for the summer solstice and the major lunar standstill full moon, and then I went down to Iona and while I was on Harris, I went to this wildlife place. I wanted to see eagles. I was like on an eagle hunt when I was there, and I saw several actually. Um, but this particular day I got there and the hike was like an hour long to go to the eagle place, and it was pelting with rain and wind. And I was like, there's no way I'm walking for 2 hours in this weather. So I just did this small little like woodland walk. And as I was going in, these guys were coming out. I was like, did you see anything? And they're like, no. And I was like, okay. And I literally almost turned back because I was getting pelted and it wasn't really fun. And I wanted to be in my car. But I kept going. And all of a sudden I saw across the way, and I don't know if maybe these guys just didn't look that far or if they appeared after they left. I have no idea. But I saw 9 gray herons
Yeah.
on the side of this, like on the side of the water in this little slight hill or something. And they were all in an infinity shape. Yeah, they were literally in a lemniscate, and I have a picture of it. It's on my Facebook, and I was just like, oh my God, because they're very solitary creatures. You usually don't see like giant groups of them. Like they usually kind of do their own thing, and you'll see 1 or 2 if they're paired up or if they have babies, okay. But like this was like a small group. I thought for me it was the 9 priestesses of Babylon in heron form, but they were literally in an infinity. So when you said the Council of Infinity, when I saw those herons, they felt like a grouping or like the priestesses, like the priestess grouping or a council, you could call it. And so it was just kind of funny to have that imagery come in again.
Yeah.
I do think that, so I think I talked about this in Heather's interview. I did a few things like, so I can't remember where I talked about this, but I believe I talked about it in Heather's thing also. But for me, a big part of what happened is that At the end of the age of Aries, we fixed Aries as the beginning of the tropical zodiac. So
Mm.
today we say 0 Aries is spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, and it's just like that for all time. Whereas it used to be that the constellations would move and the seasons would move through the constellations. So summer would take its turn, in Cancer and Leo and Virgo and da 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 da, whatever. And in doing this, by fixing Aries as the first sign and then putting Capricorn up on the culmination point, so first house Aries, 10th house Capricorn, we've got Mars and Saturn, the two malefics, as the most visible planets in charge, of the ascendant and the midheaven. And what we did is we stopped the fluid constant change of the equinox moving through the constellations, which is actually what happened with the ages. Every age would have its turn to lead. So
Mhm.
at the end of the age of Aries, instead of Aries passing the baton to Pisces, we fixed Aries as the first sign. And then Pisces didn't actually get to lead. Pisces became the last, right? The 12th sign. And then now we're in the age of Aquarius, which from the way the ancient Egyptians calculated ages, it's what constellation is rising before the sun on the morning of the spring equinox, and Aquarius has been rising since the 1500s. So from that conception, we've been in the age of Aquarius, but the age is like 2,100 something years or longer. And it's, so we've only been through the first quarter of it. It's like, I actually, I have a webinar on it, and I consider like that first quarter, the gestation in the womb and the baby being born. And then the second quarter, we got a baby growing up. And then the third quarter, we've got an adult. And then the fourth quarter is going to be the elder and giving way to the next transition. So we're still in the baby stage, or whatever. And so then by fixing that, what have we done to the fluid movement of the cosmos and to that now we're like, no, this is it, this is the myth for all time.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, wait, nothing ever stays the same for all time. In science, that's a precursor for death.
Yeah.
Stasis is a precursor for death in science.
Yeah.
Anything that stops evolving will eventually die. That's like science. And so we actually need things to be constantly evolving and changing, but we've now lived in this weird, surreal time in humanity where we want tradition, we want things to be the same, we want things to endure forever, and then we bear down and just hold on to things, out of safety, security, fear. For some people, they're holding on to it because they just want power and, don't want to give it away or not have it taken from them. And it's just a strange time.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, again, I think we could talk for so many hours.
Yes.
But just to say, yeah, because it's very present, so it seems to want to be said. Um, I've started channeling some of the stars, right? And I channeled a bunch of things recently from Sirius, not surprising because Sirius was with the sun and blah blah. And but the biggest message that kept coming through as I've been channeling Syrian light, what I seem to be channeling is not, anyway, it's like the literal light vibrational quality of these stars. Anyway, so as I've been channeling that from Sirius, what keeps coming up over and over and over again is they keep talking about the concept of DNA
Mm.
and how even the word DNA um, concretizes what we conceive of as what they're saying. It's really like streams of light. It's information in the form of light codes, in a sense, if you want to use that word, that's in a dance together, that does this double helix thing. But if we clamp down and hold on to our concept even of what DNA is, it's squishing it too much. And they're saying, what they were basically saying is, this is really out there, but I felt it in my body and I believed them, is they said it's just like when a baby is born, the mother's body is first creating colostrum, right? And then the baby doesn't need colostrum after what, 2 or 3 days, and then the milk comes in, and then there's the newborn milk, and then as the baby grows, the milk literally changes as the needs of the baby change. And then by the time if you're still nursing and the baby's, a toddler, then there's all this amazing stuff going on in the breast milk that's specifically for the needs of the brain development of that toddler, et cetera. You know what I'm saying? We're both moms. So that they were saying it's the same exact thing. It's that our these light code, we need to let go, release our sense of wanting to control, even in our conception of what DNA is, to let the way that the light codes of information need to flow, let that continually evolve, just like the milk of a mom.
Yeah. Well, and also my understand, I mean, this is not my specialty, but my understanding is that the milk of the mom is also evolving and transforming specific to her baby. Like
Yes,
it's not
yes, oh,
just about
definitely.
stages of, oh,
Yes,
now your brain's developing, but it's like, what does this child need?
yes,
So one woman's breast milk for the same age child is going to be different than another's for her child.
yes.
And
Like
it's so
specific
interesting.
antibodies. Yeah,
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 yes, it's so interesting. And that makes sense. I mean, they say about we have junk DNA. I mean, I remember when I first heard that term, I was like, well, that's a bunch of BS. Like, it's not junk. It's just you don't know what it's for.
yeah.
Or you do know what it's for, but you don't want anybody to know, so you're not telling anybody. I don't know. And it's like there's just so much more for us to discover about ourselves and who we are and where we came from. Um and the history of humanity, which goes way beyond whatever we're been conditioned to believe.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Close.
so yeah, it's an interesting time. I feel like there's going to be, especially next year when Uranus is conjunct the Pleiades. I was actually checking for the date because the main star that they put in the software is Alcyone, so they don't put all of them. But I could code it for Alcyone. Uranus is going to be conjunct Alcyone June, July 2025, and then in through 2026. But Alcyone's at 020 Gemini at this point, I think. Oh, that's actually another thing I wanted to say. So this is due to the fact that we have a tropical astrology system. So 0 Aries is fixed, whatever. But the Pleiades have been transitioning from 29 Taurus to 0 Gemini. And that actually began in the early 70s.
Mhm.
And I think it was 1973 was the first star, if I'm remembering correctly, that moved into 001 Gemini. And now about half of them seem like they're in Gemini and half are at 29 Taurus, but eventually they'll all be in Gemini. And they're, transitioning. So Uranus will get to 29 Taurus before June, July. It'll probably be, I'm guessing, like Jan, Feb of next year or something. And then this planet of the higher mind, of the rebel, revolutionary, great awakener, will be going over the Pleiades. When Uranus moved into Taurus, back like 5 years ago or whenever that was, I wrote this whole blog that was channeled, like I channel when I write and teach, that I think I titled it Uranus in Taurus, a revolution of embodiment. Either that or I called it the embodiment revolution. I can't remember.
Mhm.
And, Taurus is like I mean, it's fixed earth, it's Venus ruled. It's like be in the body and the pleasure of being human, the senses. When I do readings, I'm like, Taurus likes good fun, good wine, good food, and high thread count sheets. It's like, let's just enjoy this, embodied existence. It likes the sensual experience. It's not trying to go up and out. Taurus is actually like wants to be here on this earth. And so for Uranus and Taurus, Uranus is the rebel and the revolutionary. And so then him and Taurus can be this radical waking up in the body to being here now on the earth. Of course, there's always a light and shadow to everything. So the shadow, Uranus, can also be escaping, not wanting to be here in the body right now on the earth. And it feels like that's a choice we each have to make, like Lisa, my channeling teacher who I study with, she says that it's about full incarnation. You know,
Yes.
I would call it, previously I was saying full embodiment, but she says full incarnation, bringing the light all the way down and in so that there's not like human harmony and higher self harmony and maybe a little crossover, but it's like the full integration and union. And that's how heaven returns to earth. And so Pleiades to me are a teacher for that, or teachers, whatever. All the stars are really, but they're being activated like a lot right now.
I have one last question kind of related to that. So, because I'm sitting here just like riveted and fascinated by Orion being Artemis. I was like, yes, I want to learn more about that. So, okay, so if we think of that Orion constellation as actually Artemis, then something in the Orion, the thing I'm incredibly drawn to in that constellation is the nebula, under the belt.
Mhm.
When I'm under the stars and I'm seeing it, my whole being is like, ah, there's something so beautiful about that.
Yes.
What? And I'm like drawn, like my whole being is just like vroom, straight to it, and I can't figure it out. Do
I
you have
might
any?
have a picture of it. Hold on, let me just see if I have the picture. Oh, you know what? I think I don't. I just had pictures of the Pleiades, but that's the womb space. It's the place where
That
the
is
stars
exactly
are
what I was
born.
just feeling in my body.
Yeah.
I was like my whole literally I was sitting here going, that's the womb.
You know,
That's her womb.
nebula and Orion. I want to just show a picture of it because I think it'll be useful. Let's see. Oh, I don't want just the nebula. I want like the whole constellation. Orion. Oh, here. I think this one works.
Because, and just to say for people, I mean, that's where stars are literally being born. I mean, that's like
Yes.
actually a thing. That's we're not making that up.
Known. It's
Really
known
real.
astronomically. So
Yeah.
here's a picture I just pulled off of the internet. So here's the belt of stars. So Mintaka and Alnitak have to do with a girdle or a belt.
Mhm.
And then Alnilam, the center star, is actually the most distant one from Earth. I forget how many thousands of years it is, but it's like really far. And the fact that it shows up in equal brightness compared to the other two to form the asterism of the belt is like amazing because it has to be incredibly bright since it's like I can't remember. I feel like it's like 4,000 light years away, but I could be getting my years off. So, today we're shown that this is Orion and he faces that way and he's got his club and then he's got a shield, but actually Al-Uzza is facing the other way and this is her hair. And
Wow.
she has a bow and arrow. She's the huntress. So to be clear, I haven't found that I'm remembering anything that confirms that this used to be Artemis, but I do know it used to be Al-Uzza in Arabic lore, and it was a female, and there's a lot of female indicators in the star names. But because when they talk about the Pleiades, they say that they would go hunting with huntress Artemis, and
Mhm.
Orion is the hunter. And typically in the myths, when they have people connected to each other, like Perseus slays, Medusa, Algol star is in the Perseus constellation, and then he also slays Cetus, and Cetus is down there close to him. You don't find Cetus on the other side of the sky. They put them near them so that the myth or maybe they're there first, let's say, and then the myth gets written to connect everything. So when you look at the Pleiades, the hunter is Orion, who's chasing them. But if they would hang out with the huntress and go hunting with Artemis, then all of us, and then knowing that this was seen as a female goddess in the Arabic lore, that's when I started connecting dots, going, oh, Artemis is a huntress. She hangs out with the Pleiades, and that's where I got the connection of Orion to Artemis, but I haven't found any proof of that. My experience is that, especially Greek and Roman, when they changed the myths to fit whatever they wanted, they did their best to get rid of what was there before, you
Mm.
know? So it's like, I actually have to go into other cultures
Mhm.
to find truths that were buried but not fully removed yet, like Sumerian and Arabic and Hawaiian and but they did a really good job of just like removing threads to other things that were there before.
Well,
So it
and I
takes a
think
lot.
our yeah, and I think the other place we'll find these, with the threads that are wanting to be alive right now is in our own bodies, literally. Because literally, as you before you said it's the womb space, literally, my womb was like, it's the womb space.
It is. It is, and it's funny because a lot of times they make this triangle of stars, and they make it with Safe, Alnitak, and Rigel, and then they say this womb is in the middle.
Mhm.
And they say this 3 stars is the ones that are like important with the whatever. But for me, it's always felt like it's supposed to go Safe to Alnilam to
Oh,
Rigel. Because it's the Alnilam is the middle star that means sapphire pearls, the most, important jewel. It's the furthest star, so many thousands of years away. It feels like that star is supposed to be the apex of the triangle to me, but whatever.
yeah,
But
no, I love.
they change things. I mean, honestly, there's been truly like changing and altering things on purpose to misinform, to like shift things in a different direction. I mean, even taking the huntress who was facing left and making it face right, and now he's chasing the Pleiades. It like, what does that do to consciousness, especially because these myths are supposed to inspire human consciousness? So we've got this hunter who chases after women who are not interested in him, and we've got these myths of slaying and conquering. Like, what is that doing to human consciousness? What is that inspiring? Take a look around at the earth. That's what it's inspiring. Everything that we're dealing with, the wars and the desecration of the earth and the land and the harming of children and of women, and like all the things, the indigenous cultures, the animals. Like, that's what these myths are inspiring, and it's going to inspire us all the way to destroying ourselves. Or we can decide that nope, we want new myths because we want a new trajectory as a humanity. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and so last thought.
Yeah.
um, this is what my body is needing and wanting. So I'm just gonna assume I'm gonna go with it. What would you sort of want to leave us with in terms of this whole concept of the it, doing whatever we can to invite back in the feminine into our bodies? Again, whatever gender we identify as, whatever biological, however our biology happens to be, right? We all probably need that, want that. I certainly need it. I could cry right now. Like, yes, yes, let's do that. So what would you like to leave us with in terms of how to invite that?
I can I can just share what's worked for me,
Hmm.
and what I teach and share with like my students and clients. I mean, I'm not saying what I'm saying is the end all be all, so I'll just start with that.
Yeah.
For me, one of the biggest pieces that began my healing path was getting into yoga.
Mm.
Like, that was a very deeply awakening. It brought me into my body, first of all. So, body practices like yoga or qigong, or just hiking in nature, or gardening and being out in the earth, like connecting to your body and to the earth, like physical somatic stuff and somatic healing. Astrology was also a big piece for me, studying astrology. But then what I did is I started getting to astrology, and I started seeing how a lot of it was oriented to us going up and out and like looking at the sky and looking at the chart. What does this mean? And not necessarily like being in my body with the astrology. And so then the next thing on my path that was hugely like formative was shadow work. And shadow work is all about, especially those lower three chakras and what's in there, fear and emotions and lack of any ego or too much ego, and working with the trauma and the wounds and the pain that block the light from fully coming in. Like the light's there, it wants to come in, but if we've got, blockages, it could only come in as far as it can come in, or, and it will also create like intensity, especially if you're trying to work with Kundalini energy in a more yang way of, actively trying to make it move, which I don't actually recommend. I
Nope.
think yin is the only
Nope.
way, just
That's a
surrender.
no.
Yes, but it can totally fry you if your body is not ready for that level of energy to come through and you're pushing it. I've heard horrible stories
No,
of
I've
people.
had no, that's a no. That's just a
Yeah,
no. Yeah,
yeah.
don't do that. Hmm.
So those like the body somatic work, yoga or whatever it is that is like a spiritual, physical practice, astrology, and then shadow work have been like, three important pieces to my path. And shadow work was honestly a really big piece because, astrology is fun. You study and you're in your mind and you're thinking about things, and the somatic thing initially, as you're moving blockages through your physical body through the practices, there can be a lot of resistance, but at a certain point you get really into it. But the shadow work was like, okay, what's in there? What needs to be excavated? Where do I need to express and release? It was very deep, intense work, but it was really pivotal on my journey. And in terms of creating the space, like I feel like for me, anyhow, the divine feminine is just waiting for us. It's not like we need to call to her and when is she coming? Like it's more like when are we ready, And so I've just like been working on my own readiness and my own conditioning and wounds and pain. And I'm still on that path. So to be very clear, it's not like I'm done by any means. I think it's like work that we do in many, many lifetimes. So
There's so many layers to it. I mean,
there is, oh, and actually, to be honest, the priestess path was really pivotal for me. So I'm an initiated priestess in a few traditions, and then through actually one of my bloodlines. And so it's like an ancestral thing. And that's like, the priestess archetype is literally the bridge between the divine and earth, and being that bridge but you have to clear your channel to be able to do that. And so that was also important. I think like for me, I've always gone where I was being led. So it's like if it shows up on my path, and especially if it shows up like 3 different times, it's like, oh, something's there. I think I need to do it. And I'm really good at following guidance and just listening, even if it sounds crazy. I've had people go, boy, Harmony, you just trust. And I'm like, I don't know. To be honest, if I don't trust, I feel like it makes life worse. It makes life more intense. So I've just learned that the best way to go with it is to flow. And I've done like some crazy things on trust. And, you know, um, so I do recommend starting where you're at. Like if you keep, let's say, hearing about somatic healing work and you've got like trauma locked in your body and it just keeps coming up, follow that current. If you hear about shadow work and light bulbs go on, follow the current. If whatever it is, like I feel like we're always being led, like the myth with the little, what was that myth where they put the little bread pieces and they followed
yeah,
them? What is
yeah, yeah.
that myth? I don't know why I'm not remembering.
Talking about
Hansel and
Hansel
Gretel.
and Gretel, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like the universe, our higher selves, whatever, are always putting the next little piece of bread or whatever was in
And
that
I
myth.
think our body knows too. Our
Yes.
body
Oh,
knows.
yes. Our bodies are so wise. I mean,
Totally.
our bodies are the temples that hold our spirit, like the whole Grail myth. Everybody's like, oh, the Grail. What was so amazing about the Grail is what it held. But the Grail is our bodies. We each are the Grail. We're the vessel, we're the temple. But most of us kind of like forgotten that. And I totally understand because I did too. And so, yeah, trusting your body, taking care of your body, like, your body is your best friend. Hanging in there with you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Um,
Wonderful.
yeah. And pay attention to your dreams. I wouldn't be surprised if we all get like lots of Pleiadian inspired dreams.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great. Well, so I know that you have a class coming up that is very exciting. Do you want to describe that and tell people also just where to find you and
Yes.
all
Thank
that?
you. So my website's Divine Harmony and divineharmony.com. My real name is Harmony. I often ask, yes, I was born and my mother named me Harmony. So Um, and the class that's coming up starts August 4th. It starts on a Sunday with the new moon in Leo, and it actually starts in that portal of new moon in Leo, solar Lugnasa, which is one of the 8 holy days of the sun, and then Lionsgate. And then it's 5 live classes, but 8 weeks. We have integration weeks, and it's called Calling in the Light. And it's literally working with your chart as a map and seeing the light, the gifts, the radiance that you have, and then doing embodiment practices, guided meditations, journaling, reflection to work with that and anchor it or activate it or wherever you're at on your path, whatever you need. And so that's coming up. And then I write a lot. I have a membership service with like horoscopes, and I teach a lot. I love teaching. Teaching is my happy place. Brings me joy. And I don't know, what else do I do? I mean, I have social media, but I'm kind of like hit or miss with it. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. Like I kind of don't even just want to be on it at all. And yet, like if your business is online, I don't know
Yeah.
if
I know the
now.
feeling.
So I have an Instagram and a Facebook, and I will periodically post, but I'm not like religious with it.
You have a YouTube channel also.
Yes, and I need to get back to, I keep having it in my head to start doing things again, and I haven't. But I do have some things, like I posted the talk from Keepers of Humanity on there, and then my talk with Suzanne's summit, I'm going to be posting it. And then can you like tag me somehow so this just shows up on my channel?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I don't know if it'll show up, but I can definitely
Oh,
tag.
oh, okay, okay. Oh, I'll figure out how to make it show up on my channel.
Mhm.
Yep. So,
Beautiful. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and just to, this is far away, but just as a teeny tiny preview, I mean, so Harmony and I are definitely going to collaborate in at least 2 ways in 2025, which I'm really excited about. Kaylin Castell and I are going to be doing a free event in March of 2025, and Harmony has already agreed to be part of that. And then also later in 2025, I'm going to be holding my own star series, and Harmony's agreed to be a speaker in that. Anyway, I just think that there's going to be probably a lot of interweaving over time with us. So I can feel that probably coming. And I'm really, really, really happy to have connected. So yeah, it feels just so rich. Like, mm, mm. Can you show the rocks you showed me that you
Oh,
are,
yeah.
yeah, from
Yeah,
Iona?
so I like to bring crystals whenever I teach, and I pick who wants to come with me. I was just on Iona, so these are Iona stones, and they were found at St. Columbus Bay, and there's actually all kinds of beautiful stones there, but this particularly is serpentine marble. So it's like this marble with this green serpentine energy in it. Anyhow, this one looks like an egg, and it's hard to tell when it's wet. I think you can see it better, but it actually has like a face on it that looks like a dragon. Wait, do I have it upside down? It's when it's wet, it's easier to see. And then this one to me looks like a dragon's tooth.
Amazing. Yeah, and that is so powerful. And
That's from
I was
them.
telling Harmony, Iona is in just anyway, not it's down the same bay. It's in the same water. It's in the
Yes,
same
yeah.
water as
In
the
Argyle, in the, I forget what it's not arrondissement, that's France and Paris, but like the area, it's called the Argyle and Butte area.
yes. Yeah,
It's in
my
the
family.
same, yeah,
Yeah, my
that's
family
where
is from an island just up from Iona, and so I look at those stones and I just go, my whole being is like, oh,
yeah. I,
so
I
something,
love
something.
Scotland. Oh my gosh, Scotland's
Yeah.
amazing.
Me too. Wow. Well, thank you again so much, Harmony, and thank you to everybody listening. Please chime in with your thoughts, your feelings, your sense of connection to the Pleiades, to the stars, anything you feel alive that you want to share. We would love to hear it. Thank you so much for joining in with us, and more to come for sure.